Hi, Robert. This is Alana from the Valley Morning Star newspaper.
Hi, Alana. Pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you. I want to see if we could start from the beginning. How did you two decide to go ahead and make this documentary?
Robert,
go ahead, Josh. Well, yeah, I can. Well, Josh came to my place of business and saw the recognitions and the awards that I had received 20 years ago when the bridge collapsed for acts of heroism. And we got those from everybody, from the governor, Rick Perry, to the county of Cameron County, and several different officials. So in seeing these, and I got the actual key to the city, and I have them framed on my wall, and Josh saw those, and we started talking about them, and that was pretty much it. Josh and I rubbed elbows on a couple of other events, and during the pandemic, we kind of reconvened, and Josh said, "Look, man, I'd love to do a podcast about the story," and so we did. And the reception of the podcast and the views and the shares and the comments are really what fueled Josh and my motivation to turn this into a documentary, because just literally hundreds of people were saying this needs to be a movie, this needs to be a documentary, what is next? And although we tried, and Josh, I think you did like a 9 episodic a podcast.
Yeah, it's 9 episodes.
9 episodes, and after Josh was done conducting all of those, when we went back and watched them, they basically made a storyboard and an outline of what the documentary would be. We got to visit several interesting people and get everybody's perspectives and get our facts straight. And then after a couple of big wigs like Carla Winfrey, and who is Oprah Winfrey's cousin, and her production company approached us about us hiring them to make a documentary, a 7-minute documentary for $50,000. And another gentleman by the name of Javier Chapa from Netflix, who produced, he's from the Valley, and he's a director and a producer for a movie called Blue Miracle with Dennis Quaid in it. That was a #1 hit on Netflix. He heard the podcast through some local people who sent it to him, and then he approached me and Josh for the life rights and wanted to make the movie. But then he really gave us a very small and shady, sad deal. So we didn't want to do that. And then before long, Josh said, "Robert, I can do this. We can do this. Let's just see what we come up with, and let's shoot it, and we'll see." And here we are today with 10 or 11 best featured documentaries and several honorable mentions and second and third places and things of that nature. And it's just it's baffling us.
The way Robert described it sounded a lot easier.
Huh?
The way you described it sounded a lot easier.
Oh yeah, no, I know. I say it now like that because I think we've said it so many times in different interviews. But oh no, it was a struggle, like demoralizing, no funding. Josh and I learning things, on the cusp, on the road, traveling to get shots and trying to find actors. No, it was something I'd never done. So and neither had Josh. So we really didn't know what to expect. But we're not quitters. Mm-hmm. So as soon as we started seeing these obstacles, I think instead of discouraging us, they almost challenged us and motivated us to figure out a way to get it done. And Josh, that's what he's an expert at, figuring out how to get the shots and how to get it done and how to sew them all together so that they flow seamlessly. And lo and behold, we now have an award-winning documentary.
And what was that process like for you and Josh to put this documentary together? What do you think were some of the challenges or the most rewarding things?
Go ahead, Josh, because
I
You'll know
think
better than I
I
will.
think the most rewarding thing was meeting the people that were attached to the story. We went to the 20-year anniversary, and it was a very somber experience. But all those people that showed up there were people that I heard about, that I listened to from Robert's story, that I did research on, that I got to learn a little bit more about them, that I had phone conversations with them leading up to the events, that I met very few times. And, they became good friends of mine through the process. Even the process of going to Corpus or going to Washington, D.C. to meet up with the Coast Guard. Those are all memorable experiences because we've never done that before. We just assume that that's what you're supposed to do as a filmmaker to go get
Mm-hmm.
the truest form of the story. So we wanted to tell a complete version of the story, the truest version of the story. And we did whatever we had to do to get it done. I think Robert and I are at a certain place in our lives where we can afford to be able to go and venture in those things and to be able to keep this piece of history alive.
Yep.
And could you go through like a timeline of this project? Do you remember when you started filming and then when filming ended?
Sure. We started podcasting about this in February. I believe it was right before summer. We were thinking about doing the documentary, and then we saw that a local film festival, I forget, was it August 15th, Robert?
It was August 15th. We had to submit by August 15th.
And at that point, we had 45 days from the time that we decided that we were going to do this. And those 45 days were our time limit. So it kind of pushed us. August 15th, we had to submit something. So we shot everything in 45 days. We put everything together, edited it. We got local artist Gregorio Garza Jr. To do the whole music score. He did it in 3 days. And I told him that I need this now, and he jumped on it. So 45 days is the production, editing, music, graphics, everything.
We don't recommend people trying in that time frame, though. Not everybody's like Josh. Josh is not a procrastinator. He just knows exactly how long it's going to take him to do everything, so he pushes the limit.
Yeah.
But yeah, we didn't. He by no means is a procrastinator. Like, if we need to get something done today, we need to get it done today. But
I literally finished submitting at the last day, like the last hour. So.
So he manages his time well. And at first, I was nervous because it seems like procrastination, but I don't see everything that Josh does behind the curtain. He's kind of like the Wizard of Oz, and he makes everything happen when it comes to editing and color softening or brightening and sound and just merging all of these bits and pieces that we collect from everybody, from Gregorio, from what he compiles, the storytelling that I'm doing, the PSA students, and what they submitted for us. And so he has to knit and sew all of this thing together to make it seem like it was just birthed that way, and it grew into this. And some of the stuff we shot in completely different times. Some of the endings were shot, first. Some of the middle stuff was shot, last. And so he has to go back and siphon through all of these things and then arrange them to where it's a puzzle that in pieces you can't tell what it is, but once he puts it together, you can really see the picture. And so I don't know what that kind of stuff entails and how long it takes for him to do that, but he does it, and he does it well to the point to where this project is 15 or 16 awards in already as far as what we've won.
And to add to that, we also shot the documentary a completely different way when we started, and we got on board with a PSJ Southwest Theater Club, and they wanted to participate in a part doing their own documentary. So we went along with them, and I told Robert, like, dude, this is how you're supposed to shoot a documentary. So we scrapped everything, and then we shot everything. And then the final version, it went through like 7 or 8 different versions before we were happy with what came out of it.
At least 7 or 8, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And this documentary was created by the both of you, and I understand you're both from the Valley. Which area of the Valley are you both from?
I was born and raised in La Joya, Texas, and I reside in McAllen now.
Yeah, McAllen resident here.
McAllen, okay. And also, the person that you mentioned that wrote the music, are they also from the Valley as well?
Yeah, he's actually from McAllen as well.
McAllen as well, okay. And so, your documentary has been receiving so much success. Looking back at it now, did you expect it to reach this point?
I knew that this story was going to reach a lot of people. The podcast alone reached over 1 million people. So I knew that we had something here. And if we did it right, it would reach a lot more people. So luckily, we did it right.
Yeah. I for 20 years I couldn't speak about what happened. I couldn't legally talk about the court proceedings and that evening because of the settlement. So I was literally gagged and bound by a non-disclosure. So I didn't get to tell the story a lot, but when I would tell the story to individual family members and close friends, and I would see their astonishment and I'd see how baffled they were by some of the facts, I knew that the story had to be told, and I knew that it would be interesting. Never in a million years did I think that Josh and I would be flying to Los Angeles or to New York, some of the places that we've gone to receive awards and recognitions, all the way up in Rome. We won a film festival in Rome, Italy. Never in our wildest dreams do I think Josh and I imagined that we would have this kind of success and that our efforts would render such a well-received product. I don't think I ever imagined that, to be honest with you. I always knew the story was good and true, but I never thought that we would be able to get it this far.
And could you talk to me about the documentary, about what it's about? So I'm from Puerto Isabel, and that happened, the bridge collapse happened when I was in kindergarten. And I was looking through archives, and I feel like pretty much around that time, every story was the same. It just explained the barge was hit, the bridge was hit, and then it collapsed, and that's about it. It didn't really get too much into detail. And I understand from your documentary, it goes into tons of detail about what happened next.
This story is a story that nobody has, and it's because Robert lived it. So, Robert, go ahead, man.
Well, I mean, I agree with you in the sense that every story. Cut that up. Yeah, I'm phone with it. Every story out there that exists is wrong, and it's lacking detail, and it's lacking empathy, and it's just facts that they pull out of what happened based off of what they saw. Which is how facts are derived. People see it and they talk about it. Well, nobody saw what we saw that night. Nobody was on the water beneath the bridge when it collapsed. Nobody had the story. Everybody who was there got there an hour and a half after the fact, after myself and the gentleman with me rendered whatever aid we could and helped in any way that we were able to. So I think the story basically talks about how we managed to get there and the things that we witnessed, from the tragic to the supernatural, and I think that's where people resonate towards the story.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of commentary can people expect in your film, in your documentary film? You get perspective from you and the 3 others that were on the boat, and what other people?
The perspective is mostly from me on the boat. The other gentlemen on the boat either opt out to participate due to personal things or just didn't have the time to contribute. So it's mostly me, a reporter by the name of Denise Davila, from Port Isabel, and Gustavo Morales, one of the survivors, and I think that's it in the documentary.
No, we also have JP Montoya, which was an EMS worker at the time that helped save Gaspar Hinojosa. And also we have Jeff Lester, which was the Coast Guard that was present that day. And he goes into vivid details about that night as well. I'm sorry, it's because we have two different versions, but the version that we're pushing,
thinking about the other one.
Yeah, the version that we're pushing now has an extra 15 minutes of mature content, and that's the one that's been winning all the awards lately.
Okay, and how long is that documentary?
75 minutes.
75. And I understand there's going to be an opportunity coming up on January 20th for people to watch in Edinburgh. Is there anything you want to say about that upcoming opportunity?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Robert, you want to take this?
Yeah. So Josh and I went into this production blindly, not knowing the sequences or how to capitalize or how to get it out there. We've come to learn that any film, whether it's a short, long, or documentary, has to run its course through the film festival circuits before it gets to where it's in a position to begin negotiating with streaming networks or production companies. So nobody's going to really get a chance to watch our documentary unless it's through and via some of these screenings that are taking place in film festivals. So I would urge anybody and everybody who has any kind of interest or curiosity to make their way to the Bistro Cinemark on Trenton on the 20th of January, because it is a free event. Seats are limited, and this is a part of their South Texas history. So most definitely, yes, I would definitely invite anybody who would love to find out more and kind of see what it is that a group of untrained and unsuspecting Latinos can put together when they come together. Everybody offered a untapped talent that they did not know they had, with the exception of Gregorio. Gregorio is a musician in every sense of the word, from composing to creating to playing and singing. He's diverse in instruments and sound, and then how to manipulate them. So Gregorio knew what he was doing, but Josh, myself, and even some of the students from the PSJA school were novices, had some familiarity in the field, but hadn't really broken out, so to speak. So if people are interested in the story, or people are interested in what a group of strangers can do when they set their minds to a certain goal, this is the documentary to come visit and watch.
Mm-hmm. And how does it feel to be able to represent the Rio Grande Valley like this, and traveling to so many different places and just introducing the world to this area?
I always have this question for people. Do you have to make it? Do you have to leave the valley to make it? And that's one of the questions that I always ask in my podcasts. I'm happy to represent the valley with film, with what I do with digital marketing, and to be able to get eyeballs on it here, especially the Rio Grande Valley. I think we're in a beautiful place with untapped talent that needs to shine, and I'm glad we're part of that culture now.
I would say the same thing. I think that the Rio Grande Valley is underrated when it comes to a place where people come to find talent or stories or culture. Now that Josh and I have kind of been dubbed, I guess, like somewhat of a Rio Grande Valley ambassadors, when it comes to filmmaking and in the film industry and stuff like that, I feel incredibly honored and humbled that we're being, addressed as people who are bringing attention to the valley in a good way for a change. The valley's been notorious for being a border town and having issues with politics and drugs and county sheriffs and things. And every time we make national news, it's on a tragic it's on a tragic note. It's on an unfortunate note that individuals did that reflect poorly on us. So for us to finally give the masses something positive about Rio Grande Valley and the Latinos who occupy it is it's honoring.
While we're sharing a piece of South Texas history, I think that's awesome.
Sharing it and preserving it. Now this story that happened when you were in kindergarten, now you know it. Now you can convey it to somebody else, and you can keep that history alive. If not by telling it yourself, by maybe just forwarding or sending somebody our podcast or our documentary. So that's going to live forever and long, long past and after Josh and I are gone. So that's an accomplishment in itself.
And what are some main goals that you and Josh had going into this documentary? What do you really want your audience to learn or gain from this film?
For me, it would be to have a little bit of closure. I think this whole process helped Robert have a little bit of closure of the PTSD that he suffered throughout this, but also the people that were affected by this tremendously. They're still affected to this day. So I'm hoping if it helps another person with a piece of closure, I think that's my goal.
I would agree, man. I didn't expect, again, a lot going into this endeavor other than the gaining of the experience. Now that it's won 11 Best Featured Documentaries against epic directors and good films and stories. I think that our message to the masses is, more importantly than anything, don't listen to the naysayers, man. If you got a good idea in your head and you have a way to pursue it, then it's your personal obligation to go after what you want. Nobody else is going to do it for you. I told Josh, and I'm plagiarizing this. I don't know where I got it from, but I know I read it somewhere that one is too small a number to achieve greatness. That was one of the first things Josh and I discussed, how by ourselves we were going to struggle to tell this story and do it justice. But once we started pulling in more people and asking for help, it came together. So I think that what I expected the most was to learn something, if nothing else, how not to do a documentary. Mm-hmm. But now that we've done something and accomplished something that has reached, hundreds and thousands and millions of people, then now I feel like we got to preach to the people that you got to try the things that you're passionate about. You can't just be passionate about them in your head and in your heart. You got to be passionate about them in the real world, physically, and do tangible things to get yourself closer to them. And more than anything, Josh is right when it comes to closure. When you're told not to talk about the bad things that happen to you, then you're forced to struggle with them internally. And one bad thought will always lead to another, and to another, and to another. And then before you know it, you're living in a negative state. Talking to people about what happened to me that night, about what I saw and who we lost and the things that happened, has allowed me to release it and give it to the universe and give it to the individuals who are listening. And I feel like I'm not carrying that weight by myself, so I don't have to struggle with it as much. So when Josh says closure and things of that nature, he's right, 1,000%. That's what I was looking for. I just wanted to get it out.
Mm-hmm. And I tried to make a list of all of the awards that your documentary has received so far. I don't know if you want to go through it over the phone or if you want to text it to me. I just want to make sure I get every single one.
Yeah, I can go through it. Is it easier if I send it through email or?
If you prefer, like through email or text.
Yeah, I can send you a text with them. I already have them ready.
And do you plan to enter your documentary into more film festivals after the one in Edinburgh?
I don't believe so. I think we have one more festival after that in April, and that'll be the last. We think so far might be the last festival that we inputted in, because we are in talks with streaming networks and PR firms to get this to the next level. I think at this point, 11 best feature documentaries kind of speaks for itself. So putting more laurels on that poster, I just don't think it does anything for our goal to be able to reach more people.
I agree. I think we would have been completely blessed and humbled with one. Now we're saturating our movie poster, our documentary poster with laurels, and this really sparked an untapped desire for me and Josh to collaborate and continue to create documentaries and hopefully short films and feature films and stuff. So I think that this was a learning experience and a confidence and morale booster for us. And now we're going to go tackle some other things. So as far as pursuing the film festivals with the collapse, what Josh submitted to in regards to film festivals for 2021 have concluded. We have 2 more in 2022 that will take place in Dubuque. Dubuque, Idaho?
Dubuque, Iowa.
Dubuque, Iowa, and that'll probably be our last film festival with the collapse. We have a couple of other documentaries that we began to work on that we'll be submitting that have nothing to do with the collapse. They'll be completely other standalone documentaries. So this kind of inspired us to take on other South Texas history and other untold stories that merit preservation. So that's kind of what we've started. So no, we won't be submitting the collapse into any more film documentaries. Now we're trying to get it into a streaming network such as Amazon Prime or HBO or even PBS. You know, whoever's out there who is interested in helping us bring it to the mega masses through a streaming company is who we will be dealing with soon.
Mm-hmm. And is there anything else either of you would like to mention that I didn't ask?
Yeah, I'd like to get people over to the podcast series. There's 9 episodes that dives deep into everything. I mean, even Robert got to meet new people that he had never met before. So we talked to Pastor Hyde. We talked to boat captains that were on the water that day. We talked to EMS workers. We talked to, survivors. So they can go check out that 9-part series and then fall in love with what we're doing, because that is literally the foundation of the documentary. And I think once they see the documentary, they'll have a better understanding of the people that were involved. It's bringing people along for the journey.
Exactly. Yeah. The podcast gets deep into the nook and crannies that we were not allowed enough time in an hour and 15 minutes to put on screen for the documentary. So for the people who really, really, really want to understand what happened that night from different angles, the podcast is where you need to go.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much, Joshua and Robert. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me about your documentary.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure.
And if there's anything else you want to add, we are working on our next podcast series that will eventually become a documentary, and it's about the Alton bus crash.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and can they find it on that same YouTube channel?
Yeah, so we are actually airing the first episode on January 1st. So that'll be the first episode of the Alton bus crash, and so far we have 3.
Are you familiar with that bus crash?
Yes, I saw every year they do some anniversary stories about it.
Correct.
And, it was high school students involved, I believe.
Yeah, well, 12 and 13-year-olds all the way up to 18 and 19-year-olds. But, mostly middle and high school students. 23 children drowned and passed away in that accident. So that's our next project that we're already currently working on.
Mm-hmm. Well, I wish you both, great success with your upcoming film festivals coming up, and congratulations on all the achievements it's received so far.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate that.
When will you guys be publishing this article?
I'm going to talk to my editor about it because we have some sister newspapers, so I feel like maybe some of them will grab the story also. The editors always talk to each other about like planning what day to publish the story. So I'm gonna give it to him, I believe, on Thursday, and then I'm gonna ask him what day he'll think it'll come out. But I'll reach out to you both and let you know when it's gonna come out when I get a definite date.
Yeah, just keep us in the loop.
That would be great. Yeah, keep us in the loop. Let us know, and then just tell your editors that in 2022, this is it'll be last year's news. So if they can push it out before the end of the year, they'll manage to do it the same year of the 20-year anniversary of the collapse, and it'll still be this year's news.
Hey, Alana, I would love for this to be the story of the year.
Yeah, push that.
That'll be awesome.
All right.
Well, thank you so much for your time and consideration. We appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. Have a good rest of your day.
All
Bye.
right. Appreciate it. Thanks.